Hey there, Dr. Charlene here, and I run the Recovery Blueprint. And here's a question that I get asked often, and it can be asked in both directions. So I am going to answer in both directions. So the question that I get asked is, if I have Hashimoto's, do I have hypothyroidism? And the answer can be yes, or it can be no. And I want to ask that question in reverse first and then answer that because that's the easier one to get to. So in reverse, let's ask, if I have hypothyroidism, do I have Hashimoto's? And the answer is most likely yes. 90 to 97% of people, at least in the US, and I would expand that to the, westernized world, as well, about 90 to 97%. So, 9/10, close to 100% of people who have hypothyroidism is caused by the autoimmune condition Hashimoto's. And most of your doctors aren't going to check for this in the first place because they have only one solution. They're not going to treat it differently. They haven't quite gotten on board yet with this whole lifestyle practice thing that helps us live healthier lives and can get our diseases into remission. And so until they join us on that path, they're going to use their one single solitary tool that they have, which is prescription medications, in this case, in the case of Hashimoto's. And it's okay. We'll let them join us when they're ready. But know that if you've been diagnosed with hypothyroidism, there's a strong likelihood that you have hypothyroidism because of Hashimoto's. And if that's the case, it's a simple antibody test. There's a couple of antibodies that we would look into, the TPO antibodies and the thyroglobulin antibodies. So if you're curious, if you've been treated for hypothyroidism for a while, or just have a new diagnosis, go back to your doctor and ask if they'll run the Hashimoto's antibodies and remind them that there are two, there's not just one that they're looking at. So that's the question in reverse, and like I said, that's the easier one to answer. So the original question is, if I have Hashimoto's, do I have hypothyroidism? And the answer is yes, and sometimes no. Sometimes people have their Hashimoto's so well under control that they're not hypoactive. They're not underactive. And if that's the case, if that's you, then fantastic. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep it at bay. Now, if you have symptoms still, a lot of hypothyroid symptoms, then we're probably missing something if your doctor is telling you you don't have hypothyroid. But in most cases, most of the time, when people have Hashimoto's, they're in a hypothyroid state, meaning an underactive thyroid state. And we're going to determine this in a couple of ways. We're going to look at your symptoms and see how you're feeling overall. Do you have symptoms that match up? And we also want to look at your lab work and see if your labs are indicating that you're underactive, you're hypothyroid. And just because you have Hashimoto's, which is a hypothyroid condition, doesn't mean you can't go hyper. You can't go overactive. It's very true, and I see it all the time. And you can go back through my other videos and see that I've talked about what a Hashi flare looks like, and that's oftentimes when a person has an underactive thyroid that is spilling out thyroid hormone. The tissue is being destroyed, basically, and they go into a hyperactive swing. So we want to avoid that because it's very uncomfortable and can get dangerous. I hope this answered your question. I know the answer is kind of clear as mud here when people ask me if they have Hashimoto's, if they have hypothyroidism. The answer is most likely yes, they do, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're doing great. And so again, I'm Dr. Charlene, and I run the Recovery Blueprint. If you're curious to work with me in any way, I would love for you to find the link below this video and see if you would be a good fit as a free guest in our online support group. And I am here to help you out, and as always, be well.